Get out of this mess. Even the great prophet Bob Marley said it on Uprising, which was basically his last album, 1990. The only solution is total destruction. Well, and you should find comfort in that, because that's the only way you're going to have harmony with this devil here. This devil ain't going to have it but no other way. So we got to kick him in his ass. And that's what it's about, getting the power. We're not going to have no peace and harmony with no doggone social change, nonviolent movement of no Martin Luther King bulljive. That government agent. You got to understand that. So now let's get to the lecture at hand and dig our way out of this. Now it's interesting because now, it's funny because now the white man knows this now. And all of a sudden in his churches, they'll now have this new thing of this infusion of black people and black congregations with white people. That's the new thing now. It's multicultural Christian organization. That's because they're trying to save themselves through you. Understand what I'm saying? I got a friend who said that her father was in the Rosicrucians. But the father was black. But the white man just used the father because the father could get on certain realms and get certain information from them that they couldn't go to. And he would get information for the society. He ended up dying and they didn't even help the man. But they do that and they use us as the battery. So now the new thing is they got this preacher down in South Carolina preaching to an all-black congregation, a white man with kitty cloth on. See what I'm saying? Kitty cloth on. So this is the new thing now, this infusion. So when our God come to get them, try to get some of us too. You see what I'm saying? But then again, in any spiritual uprising, the devil always was more spiritual than so-called the people that God was coming after. The devil always knew the knowledge and bear witness to it. See what I'm saying? So that's the new thing now, is this particular infusion. We're going to go past the stuff the last couple of months. Try to understand something. So now, you had the movie Rosewood come out. Anybody saw the movie Rosewood? Yeah. Well, go rent it on video. I'm quite sure, because I'm quite sure it's out of the theater. Right. Which was a great movie, and everybody should have went to see this particular thing because it showed the actual how the devil was. Now it's interesting because to counter that, the reason why most people didn't see it and it wasn't a big hoopla is because they put out booty call, this ignorant behind movie, to counter that movie. You understand what I'm saying? So, and I think it was another movie that came out. They put out Baps. What was the other movie that came out that was positive? This other movie, which was pretty good, it was, middle class thing, but it wasn't bad. Love Jones, which was a pretty decent movie. It just didn't show people, about black love and all this. Pretty decent movie, nice soundtrack, give you a good feeling. But it showed people on an upward mobile level other than just some foolishness. So they put out the movie Baps. You understand what I'm saying? To counter this. So they got one coming out called Sprung. So they're now taking these particular stuff and they're putting out these particular movies. So so what they'll do is the science behind this. They'll come in and say, the person come in and say, man, we done had about 7 or 8 gangster movies. Tired of this mess. It's a conspiracy, just like the black exploitation time of the 1970s. So the man said, okay, I'll give you some money, make Rosewood. So same time he'll put out Baps and Booty Call. And he knowing doggone well that they got black people trained to go see that kind of foolishness. And then Rosewood don't do no good. So the next time you come back and say, I want to make a movie about Nat Turner. They said, no, I'm sorry. We gave you the money for Rosewood. It didn't do no good. You see? Because it's a conspiracy. I need some water too. Yeah, we got some right there. So it's a conspiracy. Now look at this. Let me show you something. I'm going to show you because the last time we talked about, I introduced cloning. I did a whole thing on cloning last year. This year is the reality. Let me show you something as a result of cloning. We had Robert Townsend in 1987. Came out with a movie called what? Hollywood Shuffle. The movie was specifically designed to deal with what? Black exploitation in the movie, right? 1997, 10 years later, he comes out with a movie, Baps, that is a black exploitation movie, making fun of the pathology of some of our less fortunate brothers that stuck in bad. You understand where I'm coming from?
Yeah.
That is because he made the first one was Hollywood Shuffle. Then he made 5 Heartbeats, which was a nice positive movie. Then he made the other movie, Media Man, which was, they said, oh man, this guy is really on to something here. Black superhero. We got to do something. Now, how in the devil you going to make 3 positive movies and all of a sudden turn around with something that's so ignorant? You understand what I'm saying? That's because they came in, scooped the brother up, killed the brother, put out the duplicate, and now they got the brother working for them. You see what I'm saying? Very key. Just like I said before, the people that they're raising up now, you got Dennis Rodman. If you go 10 years ago when he first started out, he was a normal human being. Well, everybody marry white people. That's the common thing in sports and what you call it. But he was a normal person. You sat on the bench and played basketball. You never heard from him. Then all of a sudden, 3 years ago or 2 years ago, this man the biggest freak out. But all of a sudden, he got his own TV show. See how this goes? That's because they got the brother put out the duplicate to show the black man and black woman as fools across the world. Same thing with RuPaul. See what I'm saying? Here's a man, come out and all with a blonde wig on. Next thing you know, they give him a TV show. But yet, they had letters that came in trying to save Rock. Remember Rock? The movie Rock? With Charles Dutton?
That's right.
They had letters coming in trying to save him. But yet, here's the doggone freak they're going to give a TV show. And that's because this science, like you're saying, worldwide, to savage the black man and the black woman.
Don't forget Hawk and Robert Urich, that old show.
Right.
Robert Urich.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yes. Black man yes. They go off on television.
Right.
They said, oh, no, guys don't got too deep.
Right.
When did Dennis Rodman get a TV show?
You see? What you said, brother?
When did Dennis Rodman get a TV show?
Dennis Rodman got a TV show on MTV. Right. This in September. Yeah. Got his own show. Freaking naked all over the place. But he got his own show. But yet, positive brothers and sisters can't get nothing. You understand what I'm saying? Now, like I explained the last time, this is very serious stuff, how they're trying to point. You see what I'm saying? So they got BET, which should be called BED. Black Television, what? What is it? BET, what is it? Black Entertainment Television should be Black Entertainment Disgrace. You see what I'm saying? Because like even Charles Dutton came on and said, well, you know, past the 10 o'clock spot, you don't see black people past the 10 o'clock spot. We're always in prime time as buffoons. But past the 10 o'clock spot, what happens? The white man go into his serious mode. You know, detective shows and all this type of stuff. You see what I'm saying? Law and Order, ER, Chicago Hope, and all this. But what happens at 10 o'clock on BET? That's when the buffoon starts. Niggas acting like doggone fools. You understand what I'm saying? You see, then at 11 o'clock, they got something now, is the government COINTELPRO tracking organization called Black BET Talk. Yeah. This is a government tracking organization. Let me show you how this works. First of all, Ricky Lake, with her ignorant behind, got an hour. Sally Jesse Raphael, everybody got an hour on these talk shows. This show comes on for 30 minutes. You say, well, hell, we got more problems than anybody. Why is our stuff 30 minutes? First of all, in a 30-minute period, you can't teach nobody nothing. The first thing they do is it comes on for 30 minutes and they'll have, what, 10 minutes of commentary or whatever the person comes in, and then they'll have the rest of it when they go to the lines, and they'll have the rest 20 minutes of talk. The show is not even coming on to make you aware in the black community. They're only giving you a taste. The show is to come on, so they'll give a hot item. They want to find out what person in this country is conscious, because they're trying to track down all conscious people and kill them. So what they will do is this. They'll wet your tongue and give you something where they done beat some nigga behind in Philadelphia. Get you all riled up. You go run to the phone. Because that's how we are. We want to show what kind of knowledge we got on the TV set. So you run to the phone. So Linda in Chicago or John in South Carolina want to show the damn TV set how much he can drop knowledge on the airwaves. So you go to the doggone TV set They done got your name and where your ass is from and your telephone number. You understand what I'm saying? And they track your behind because it's a tracking system to see what people are conscious. Yeah, you got stupid people call in. Oh, it's America and all that kind of stuff. They want to see these idiots, but it's really to see what people know, what type of science. And they got your name, they got your telephone number, they got where you live and all of that. Tracking your behind on the conscious level. Because you want to call in and drop knowledge, you see. I want to show them what I know on TV. And that's when they come in the next thing you know, you got somebody knocking down your door, killing you. But you wake up the next morning and go to your job. Go to your job. It's called a duplication. This is real deal stuff. You see what I'm saying? So we at the warfare right now. We'll go into
SikApe started up, I think in 1994. And it basically was a study of classical African civilization. And from that you had several other groups that were starting up around the same time in the late 80s. You know, you had the researchers of the Nation of Islam. The Moors started researching about the late 80s also. Several other conscious groups also. As well as it filtered into the whole rap craze, you know, with X-Plan, Public Enemy. You know the basic history where black people started coming into some type of sense of awareness of themselves that we have every 20-something years, maybe every 25 years or something like that. Now, and if you do cycles and go back from the 60s, maybe around about 30 years, but from the 60s, the 30s, even the early 20s, even the 20s or the late, certain cycles, you'll find that we always type of rear our heads up. And so we had a big resurgence of history. You know, Dr. Ben, John Henry Clark, for the people who saw Ashwakwezi, which would actually be the legacy of Dr. Ben, or what would be the continuation of Dr. Ben's commentary. And so in so many words, we had the whole historical thing, Francis Cress Welsing, Black Psychology, Naeem Akbar, you know, the whole deal. Wade Nobles, a whole host of scholars. And my entry came into this is, I was a part of the whole scholar movement and the whole, the ASCAC thing and just the whole phenomenon with Ben and Clark and his whole research of all this history. As well as, you know, the research of the Nation of Islam and all types of stuff that started happening in the late 80s and early 90s. My entry came into this when I kind of got, you know, when your eyes open, you know, when you're dead, you know, when you ignorant, basically things go pretty good for you. But when your eyes start to open, what happens is, at first it's just a revelation just to be learning all this knowledge, and then when you start looking at the doggone people and seeing the madness out here and all, you become angry. And you get more and more pissed and stuff because of the simple fact that we was taught to go about our people like it was taught in the 60s. And the 60s is we get these mass movements. We get these mass movements and everybody's going to become conscious and we all going to raise ourselves up. And just like the people in the 60s when the government started passing out money and all kind of free stuff in the 70s, and the people started running, the black people in the 60s were walking around with like they got their head cut off. They didn't know what to do. And they didn't understand that the greater culture really controls its subjects. And we're never at a time that we are not in some type of addiction of niggerism, if you want to say a niggers anonymous or whatever. We're, you know, so so we always thought that in actuality, if you just apply this particular knowledge, that people would wake up. And we didn't understand that. Nothing ever is done on a mass form. Everything is always done with a small group. And this is the way of the universe, from the atom down to any intricate part of any type of nature, scientific element, or anything. You never have a mass form of anything. And the Europeans who actually ruled over us got that science from the Africans. You know, we're talking about a small group of people ruling over a large group of people. It just so happened in our side, in our aspect, the flip side of this was that we rule based on priesthood and based on evolution of spirituality and knowledge and education. Whereas we even taught the Europeans this in more Spain, which we're going to get into tonight. Some other aspects I want to show you exactly what they're trying to coin right now as far as what they're trying to lead to as far as where the secret societies and the people who rule us are actually focusing on right now in the year 2000 and beyond. But anyway, just like everybody else, your eyes get open and you really get upset because you find out in actuality it's not an easy job. Even if the people get knowledge, it's not like they're going to be freed overnight. So as a result, I took the task upon myself, and I guess I was called for it spiritually to even go into another level. And another level was that Dr. Ben and all the great scholars was talking about the history, but they always mentioned the mystery, but no one could really go into what the mysteries were. At that particular time, the only thing we had was George G.M. James' book, Stolen Legacy, and they were thinking the mysteries was nothing but the 7 liberal arts of education, but it wasn't necessarily that way. The mystery was the esoteric teachings and much greater, profound information other than just the basic education. So we said that the Egyptians, and we said that the ancient people were not necessarily studying history, they were living history. So it's almost like we got to a certain point and we just thought that the history was the actual knowledge, and it wasn't. Meanwhile, we know that they had the groups, the European groups was dealing with what they call the so-called New Age, was nothing but they had cultivated all our ancient knowledge and put it under a new banner, put it under a new science and all, basically a new classification, and in so many words, was passing it off as theirs. And so what you had as far as, even when blacks took this stuff, they were saying, oh, that's that white stuff. But it wasn't necessarily that. It was just what they call the Western mysteries was in actuality the ancient African mysteries. And that's what we're going to get in also tonight too. This word, the Western mysteries, because that's one of the keys, which is actually Moorish science, which the way they were taught in actual Europe. So in so many words, I got into this particular stuff to uncover the deep esoteric teachings, which was what did our people learn on a higher level. And as a result, I've been into an 8-year research into this particular science. So we're not necessarily just talking about stuff to feel, but we're actually talking about disciplines and sciences that in so many words, it is just as much a high science as any of the stuff that we learn in the universities and all, which is actually a byproduct of some greater science. So as a result, I embarked upon this about 8 years ago, and I've traveled around the country, and I've done over maybe 250 videos, all being anywhere from 6 to 8 hours long, and it's just that much information, as well as my input into this is purely research, whereas I give a lot of bibliography, and so therefore it's not just put out as something that there's some crazy person is talking. Because this stuff becomes to the extreme sometimes, it is important that I found out early on that we would have to document. Now you're not necessarily saying you're going to get everything out of a book, but the thing about it is you have to lay a foundation that you can, that whatever you say that you get from the spirit realm or any other type of information called empirical evidence, at least the scholarship validates you to understand that you might know what the hell you're talking about. So basically we do give heavy scholarship and all for the simple fact that we're not necessarily in a type of movement where we're trying to get anybody to join anything. This is basically purely research, and what was supposed to happen was the black people that learned of us, and when I say learned of us, I'm not talking about just college education. Because one thing about it, I spent 8 years in college and learned nothing. But what I'm saying is, when I'm talking about the learned of us, I'm just talking about anybody that has an inquiry for higher knowledge. What we were supposed to have been doing in the late 80s and the early 90s is coming together with an intelligentsia. That means a research group, other than a group of people following people, like cult members and stuff, where you following these particular people, and these people telling you not to deal with some other stuff, you don't need to be dealing with these people over here. What we needed was an advanced group of people to do research. That means put the pieces back together of our ancient history and our ancient mysteries and our advanced sciences. Too often what had happened is, somewhere when we started getting this together in the early 90s, the government came in and they activated all these groups. And these particular groups, they activated, they came in and they introduced to the black community was to lead people astray. You get in these groups, and at first it's just a great thing, but then after 2 or 3 years, and you find out in actuality that you're being exploited, or somehow down the line the learning stopped, and basically you just ended up following this particular person spending an extraordinary amount of money. Then what happens is you leave these groups and you're disenfranchised. You'll either go back to the church, you'll either go back to, you'll either just basically say, I don't want anything to do with it, to do with this stuff. And what we didn't realize was at this particular time we are very advanced, that we need people to go out and do research. And some research is not necessarily even just talking about the academia and books. We're just talking about empirical evidence and stuff, whereas since 1996, we've done a whole vast study on how they basically emptied out the projects all across the country. And we go to each, well at least I go to each city, and we got people missing all over in the project. We talk about, they came in Atlanta and the entire underclass system is gone. They literally wiped out the entire underclass, you see. And right under the people's nose, the people walking around like it's 1972, they don't even have a clue. And that's because the government has become so advanced until we're no match for them. We're talking about being subject. So what we mean by that is they come in and they give you some information that's 20 years old, and you're thinking this is the key technology, but yet they're doing things 40, 50 years up ahead of time. You would never catch up because your mind is not even programmed and trained to understand that this man is that advanced. You see what I'm saying? So therefore, he can go and do anything around you, and you will never catch on. And it's always 20, 30, 40, 50 years later, we're just learning about this stuff. Just like they got some black group, something Zero was telling me on the internet where some soldiers threw some rock or something, one soldier hit some officer in Alabama somewhere, and they killed up a whole platoon of these people, mowed them down. Yeah. You see, we're just not learning about this stuff now. And that's the key, is because we're never aware of things because we don't ask the doggone questions. And we never challenge anything. We never challenge anything. And it's not necessarily just black people. America is that sophisticated. It's that advanced, so they even keep large populations of white people ignorant. Therefore, you're looking at them as a model, and you don't understand that they don't know nothing either. And this is the key, so they can rule over all of us by keeping large, the greater population ignorant. And in so many words, that this is a great experiment. It's an experiment for Europe and the highest powers around the world. And they say this is an alternative land that we can do all types of experiments with. Exactly. And so, in so many words, we don't catch up in time to the point where these people can hit us because we're never on the offensive. We're always on the defensive. But what we don't realize is